I'm Graham,
And I'm Corinne,
and
and
we
we
are
are
too
too
talented.
talented.
Hopefully that one worked.
I
Yeah.
don't know. We're still trying.
Oh boy. All right. Well, keep practice makes perfect. All right. We'll have lots more opportunities. Thanks for joining Too Talented today. We are going to be talking, as we alluded to last week, about behavioral-based interview questions. These can be more challenging. I've found in interviews that sometimes when I get put on the spot asking something like this, even if I know the answer and I have a good kind of thing in mind, sometimes I still get stumbled. And so we have a methodology that we'll talk about today to kind of keep you on track during the answers. That's called the STAR methodology, and we'll dig into that before we answer questions. Kind of like we created some behavioral based questions that are pretty common. And so we'll talk about how we would break that down and how we would go ahead and answer it. And maybe we'll put each other on the spot and actually have each other answer one. Maybe we'll see.
Not sure
so,
I'm ready for that, but
uh,
we'll see.
I have faith in you. I think you can nail it.
I don't know. You're way better at like improv ad hoc stuff than I am, but I'll try if we want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Corinne, what's going on with you? Running, life, work, all those things. You have something cool come out today?
Yeah, Death March Running Company. Really cool Denver-based trail running specific gear, apparel, accessory company. They reached out to me and they turned me into a trading card, which is really cool and fun. So my name is Spildren of the Corinne. They're doing these trading cards that are called Carnage Trail Kids, and it's kind of a play on the Garbage Pail Kids trading cards that existed back in the day, but trail running specific. And they have really cool artwork. So they turned me into like a skeleton figure with bloody knees and a sugar skull for a face, and running through like a cornfield with uh, pumpkins, and like it's at night. So there's a lot of themes in there, from my love of Halloween to kind of the Muertes Castle Rock Run Club origin story and our logo. And she's wearing a Women Can tank, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So when I originally got it, I said they needed to make me. Well, I showed it to our sons, Stowe and Dash, and one of them said you need to be taller. So I gave them that feedback, and they stretched me out a little bit, I guess. But it's really cool. And the cool thing is, I'll get some posters, and then they'll put the trading card in every order for the next quarter that they get at Death March Running Company. So you get to like collect these trading cards, which I'm going to have to ask them if I can get the rest of them from them, because I want all the other ones. They've done like 5 of these. They've done Andy Glaze and Callie Vinson and Jackie Hunt Barasma and Spike. I can't remember his last name. Anyways, they've done really cool people, and I'm just honored to be included in that group. So I'll get some posters and some cards myself. And then also we're raising money for the artists and writers that do our Women Can designs. And so we have a GoFundMe set up for that, and just hoping we can maybe just crowdsource a bit of money to give back to the artists, because they've believed in us from the beginning, and they're creating these really cool designs for the brand. And so hopefully we can celebrate those female artists. So if you want to check it out, you can go to my Instagram page or Death March Running Company website or Instagram.
Absolutely. Well, how exciting. And the card is so cool. Like, I can't wait to see it in person, but like the digital image of it is right down your alley. I mean, they really nailed it.
Yeah, it was very fun. And like I said, I was super honored and surprised to be asked. And it kind of just means a lot that they're noticing some of the work that I'm doing with Women Can and within the trail running community at large.
Yeah,
So that's great.
absolutely.
So this is race week for you, Graham. How are you
It
feeling?
is. I'm good. It's funny. It's like a tune-up race for Javelina, which will happen at the end of October. So like, I don't have a lot of pressure going into it. I'm almost using it as like an aided long run. So I'm going to go out there and run hard, but I'm not going to like really like hammer and race it. And hopefully running hard will put me in a decent position that, if I get to there's 3 laps, like 6-mile loop and then 2 like ish 11-mile loops. So hopefully I get into a position on that last lap if I've got some in the tank that I can kind of push hard and finish strong and see what happens. So, but I'm excited. I know the area, but I've never actually run in this park. It's called Bear Creek Park, west of Denver. So yeah, I'm excited to get out there and have fun with it. And the weather's supposed to be great for it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And
Yeah,
then
it's called the Bear Chase 50K.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they've got 100K, a 50-mile 50K, and then on Sunday they've got some of the shorter distance races. I think they have like a 5K, 10K, and then half marathon. So they've got kind of a little bit of everything out there, and some really big name runners have had some big times on some of the longer distances, especially. But I mean,
David Roach
people.
still record holder
I think
on
so for the
the
half
50K.
marathon, and he ran like a 111, which
Oh,
on
for the half
trail is
marathon. I thought he
wild.
had the 50K record.
No, 50K is Matt Daniels. He ran a
Oh,
311. So
whoop,
like a 311 50K on trail is
smoking.
wild. So it should be fast and fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, and it's
Nice.
been interesting trying to juggle with it because work today especially, and then tomorrow is really busy. I've got a number of like projects that are supposed to be kicking off. I've got an accounting finance project going on where I'm going to try to help a firm hire American talent and take them over to Europe. That one's not a done deal yet, but looking good for that one. And then a company who is they did some vibe coding to build an application, but they got about 80% there, and they need like a couple of software developers to help them get all the way there, which I think is probably going to become a common thing, and something that we'll do a good bit of over the next year or two. So kind of checking that one out. And then as I alluded to last week, I closed my first deal, which was really exciting. And so I'm just finalizing everything with him. He starts on Monday. So yeah, I mean, business wise, things are good. The market's still pretty slow, and I'm getting a lot of people who are like, no, not hiring. In fact, I'm looking. But we're starting to get some opportunities, which is really exciting and what we're here for.
Yeah. I forgot to mention, I also commentated the Mammoth 200 that just
Yeah.
happened. And so I did 28 hours worth of commentary over 3 days, which was crazy. But the crazier thing is that I came home, slept, had 2 full days, and people were still out there running, and had until Tuesday last night. We're recording this on Wednesday, until at 10 p.m. to finish the race. So I had a 110-hour cutoff, and there were
That's
some
like 5 days.
people at the end. Yeah, 110 hours. But Mammoth Lakes is absolutely gorgeous, and I think we should go there as a family and camp and hike around. It's really, really neat area. So I was lucky to get to experience it and get out of the studio for at least a tiny bit of time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and then I think also, I was just looking at our outline here, but I know we're going to get into the topic. But yeah, okay, let's get into the topic. I forgot what I was going to say.
okay, no problem. Well, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about behavioral-based questions, and and I've heard of this before in a couple different areas, so we'll cover it here. But using what's called the STAR methodology to answer those questions, and really to keep yourself mentally organized, which is one of the things that I find is easiest to do on these, is to get kind of, you get going on a topic, and then all of a sudden you stop and you're like, I don't even remember what the question was. Because these are usually kind of more complex situations and there's a lot to them. So you can go down a rabbit hole and then get stuck.
So
So it's
first we need to define what a behavioral based question is.
yeah. So we'll talk about the first one, and I'll give this question as kind of an example. So tell me about a time you worked as part of a team to accomplish a goal. What was your role? So something where they want you to come up with a situation where you did something, and then you're going to talk through how you worked through that situation and kind of what the result was. So using the STAR methodology, which stands for situation, task, action, result. So the situation, so describe what the kind of overall situation was. So think of a time you worked as a team, and then what task, so what was your role, what was your task within the project, what type of action did you take on that task to get the project done, and then what was the result of the project. And if you use that STAR methodology to answer each part, and you just answer in order. So that is the best way to kind of keep yourself on track, not get stuck in a rabbit hole or talk about one particular part of the project and then forget what the overall question was. So making sure that you think about the question, exactly what they're asking. So what was your role within a team? And then answer it effectively, especially with the action and the result at the end. So that is, in my mind, the best way and the best, when I was looking, way to organize your thoughts with these questions. So what we're going to do is take some of these most common behavioral questions, dissect them a little bit, talk a little bit about what kind of they're looking for from an ideal standpoint, and then you can take these and kind of practice yourself should you be gearing up for an interview where some of these might get asked.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, these types of questions are likely going to either come from an HR individual, because certain recruiters and HR professionals are trained in this type of questioning, or they could come from a hiring manager, depending on how much that HR and talent acquisition department or function has influence or has kind of oversight into the interview process. I think those are you might get these from hiring managers. I think you're more likely to get them from HR or recruiting individuals. And the reason that they're asked is because, the interview process is all about trying to assess how someone's going to do in the job, and past behavior is considered a strong indicator of future behavior. And therefore, these types of questions allow you to get insight into how people have actually handled specific situations in previous roles. They also can showcase kind of, communication skills, stress, how people handle stress and make decisions, like alignment with team culture, how they work with other people. And so those are some of the reasons that they are asked and used. And also, like, ideally, if you're in a interview, there are a certain set of questions that are going to be asked to every person, because you're trying to evaluate individuals right next to each other and compare them side by side. And the best way to do that is by asking them all the exact same questions. So just some background as to where behavioral-based interview questions came from and why they're asked.
Yeah, that's a great synopsis of it. I think one of the things that, to me, if I were ever asking behavioral-based questions, what is my main goal is to understand how they're going to fit on my team. So how's this person, and kind of also from a hiring manager standpoint, if you're listening to this as a hiring manager, you're going to want to be thinking about a profile that's going to make the most sense for your team. So do you have a team, thinking about kind of your team overall? Do you have a team that is, just get it done, no chit chat, really kind of work the problem and then move on to the next one? Or do you have a team that's highly collaborative, who does a lot of talking together, wants to talk through problems, either via phone call or a chat or any of those types of methods? These are the things you want to, think through about your team, and then think through the type of person that would fit well within that. And so what you don't want to have is, like, you've got someone who is no nonsense problem solver, heads down, just wants to get stuff done. If you try to put them onto a highly collaborative team who does a lot of talking, working through problems together, very, very team oriented, that may not be the best fit. So these are designed to kind of help you understand this person, how would they fit on that team.
That's exactly
Awesome.
right.
So diving into the first one. So this one is looking to understand how this person works within a team. So breaking down the question. So the question again is, tell me a time when you worked as part of a team to accomplish a goal. What was your role? So I think highlighting the two most important things that need to be answered is, one, the word goal, and then the second one is role. So trying to come up with a goal. So if you're going to use the STAR methodology, the situation part of that question is discussing just the project overall. So what project were you working on where you were part of a team that had a set goal? So talking about what the project was and what the goal was. And then the second part is kind of what action that you were taking, as part of your role within there. So, were you performing the role of a leader, or were you performing the role of someone who was actually just, taking tons of notes and keeping it organized as kind of like a project manager? Or were you highly inquisitive, like a project or a business analyst, so asking lots of questions to try to get to the understanding of really how we're going to do this? So really understanding the action that you took, and then what was the result? Did you guys get to the goal that had been established previously? And was it successful or not successful? And I think not successful projects are fine to talk about too, even though you didn't hit the goal that you were looking for. What did you accomplish? Or if you didn't accomplish what you were setting out for, what did you learn from that? What can you take into the next project that you're going to be working on?
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost more an opportunity or a test in kind of your storytelling and just your ability to describe situations and communicate kind of details within them. So I think one of the best ways to, and we were going to cover this in a bit, but I'll just add it in here, is one of the best ways to prepare for these is to just sit down and brainstorm different scenarios that you've been in. Just think about projects you've done or large, tasks you've been given, or strategy situations that you were involved in that, you then had to come up with a plan for, things softwares you've implemented, and just think through what happened, who was involved, what was your role, how did it turn out, and just make a bunch of notes about that, because a big part of this is really just jogging your memory around what you've done in the past, and then kind of having a few different examples of that then you can pull in depending on which behavioral type question is being asked.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think to your point, running through different scenarios and projects that you've been on is really important, because you want to have some depth in what you can reach for, depending on what the question is asking for. Because one project may align very well to one of these questions, whereas another one might not. So having lots of examples, and I think having notes written down is great for an interview. Having a notepad or a book where you've got a number of projects written down that you can kind of pull from, because if you just see a one liner about a project, it'll jog your memory, and if you've kind of thought it through, you can kind of use that memory jog to kind of start to answer the question. Awesome. Well, jumping into the next one, this one's looking for your problem solving skills. So give me an example of how a difficult problem you solved, and how did you approach it? So once again, kind of taking the kind of keywords out of this. So problem and then your approach are the two keywords in this particular question. So using the STAR methodology, kind of coming up with the situation. So, and that situation is really kind of the story. Anytime you want to start a story, you can almost think of yourself as a storyteller, and a great way to start a lot of those is, so there I was. So I
So
heard that in
there
a
I was.
TED Talk one time, and I love it. And I think it really sets kind of the tone of what you're about to talk about. But then kind of coming up with the task. So what was the problem? So identifying the problem, and then starting to break down kind of the ways you were, so to speak, dissecting the problem into pieces. And then the tasks that you used to kind of accomplish those, the action that you took to solve each piece, and then what was the result of it. I think is a great way to do it. So breaking this down, and even though these are just kind of a sample of questions that you might ask, a lot of these will probably dovetail nicely into other ways questions get asked. So if you prepare for one of these, you probably could be prepared if it gets asked a different way. So my next one is adaptability. Oh, actually, excuse me. There's a leadership question. So describe a time when you took the lead on a project, and then what was the outcome? So Corinne, do you want to talk through that one? Because you've recruited a lot of leaders.
Yeah, so I will. I think, yeah, if it's asked this way, I think you could use an example of a time you were assigned to be the leader on a project, or you could probably talk about a time when you were on a project and you just naturally kind of evolved as the leader of it. So again, we would use the STAR methodology and set the scene. for example purposes, I'll say I was tasked with leading our formerly known as fun committee at my this is so I'm going to start with where I was working at Cologix data center company. This was 2 jobs ago. I was heading up the recruiting function, but part of that turned into really creating core values for the company and working on the culture overall. We had a group called the Fun Committee, and there was a need for a leader on that team. So I stepped up and volunteered to be the lead on that in that group. And what was the outcome? Let me tell you about a few things that I did. We decided to just have regular cadence meetings to stay in touch. We recruited individuals from various different departments to try to get a picture into kind of what the culture, subcultures looked like within the organization, and make sure that voices from every department were being heard in the discussions around what we were going to do. One of the first things we did was rebrand ourselves and change the name to the Culture Club, which was really fun. And then we started using little images of Boy George on our emails because this is a startup type environment and there weren't a lot of rules around things, but everyone got a kick out of it. And then we really, I think I realized it was important for us to have some stakeholders in the group that were champions of the program, people like an executive. So Laura Ortman, our CEO, was, or at the time she was COO. She was a big proponent and she was very involved in promoting our activities. We had data center field operations leaders get their people involved. And one of the big things we did was that we created virtual activities. So whereas before a lot of this stuff was done in person in individual offices, partly due to the fact that the pandemic was going on, but also partly due to the fact that we realized we have technology that can allow us to actually have some really fun group activities virtually. We stood those up. We tried to involve everyone in the community regardless of where they sat, and the outcome of that was that we got a ton of engagement. All of these activities were very well attended to. We had hundreds of people partaking in our annual wellness challenge, which was done through Strava. So I think what we did was really bring the company together in a time when everyone felt really disconnected from one another. And that not only led to engaged employees and productive employees, but it also led to retention and people feeling like they wanted to stay working for Cologix. How's that?
I think that was great.
All
Yeah.
right.
You talking about not being good on the fly. Come on.
No, yeah, well, it came to
Good
me
job.
as I was talking through it, but yeah,
Yeah. No, I
so
liked it.
situation, task, action, result. And I think that the one of the keys here is, that was an example of leadership that I've done, but it maybe wasn't my best example, but it came to mind. And so I just rolled with it and I just continued to sell it, and
Yeah.
not doubt myself in the process of describing it. And I think that's also equally important, is just stick with your example, even if you maybe later think, oh, I had a better one in mind and it didn't come up.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's a great point because I've had a number of people in interviews start to answer a question with some type of answer, and then they stop about halfway through, even though it was going well, and like, oh, you know what? I've got a better one here. Let me start over. It's like, you can, but you were doing fine before. You were giving me kind of what I needed to know. So I think there's no right answer or no perfect answer here. So I
Mm-hmm.
think being able to say, I'm just going to roll with this. This is the one I'm started with. I'm going to just see it all the way through. And I think that can be powerful. So and I thought your example was great. So I can try the same exact way. I'll
Okay,
try to
now
answer.
you get to do one. You hear
Yeah.
me? Yeah, your turn, Graham. All right, so I'm going to ask you one that's geared toward adaptability. So, Graham, give me an example of a time you had to quickly adapt to a change at work.
Yes. So I did start. I looked at this one, cheated a little bit, and started thinking about it. So sorry
Okay,
about
never
that.
mind. I'm asking you the next one. Just kidding. No, you
Okay,
cannot. You can
come
answer
on.
this one.
So we had a leader at my last company who was running our upskilling program. So it was a software that we were partnering with who, if you had a consultant who was in an interview and manager said, I like everything about this person, but they don't have X, it gave us the opportunity to train that person and possibly certify them in a new skill. A lot of times it was a software or something like that. When that leader left, it left a gap because she was really managing each part of that, from interfacing with the software company that we were partnering with, to marketing it internally to the teams to let them know it was available, to really making sure it was in full use, because we were paying a couple $1,000s a month to have 5 licenses. And one of the things that I did right away was jump in and say, okay, here's how it's working now. Is there any way I could make this better or have more adoption? Because I was looking at it, and usually we only had about 3 of the 5 licenses in use at any given time. So I thought, if we're paying for all 5, is there a way for us to get kind of full adoption of all 5 at the same time? So I kind of stepped back and decided kind of how I would approach it. And really what I wanted to do was get a call set with pretty much all recruiting folks out there, all sales folks out there, and then all the leaders. And I just wanted to kind of educate them a little bit on, one, what this really does; two, how it could benefit them if they were to have a situation where they used it; and then three, how easy it was to really get someone set up within the system. So I kind of set up a 30-minute tutorial on kind of each step. And then the last thing I did was do a screen share to show how fast I could put someone into the system and get them kind of set up, which was really fast. It was about 30 seconds. So I did that, and I was able to, within about a month, get all 5 licenses used. And then I reached an issue where I was getting more than 5 inquiries about the tool, which was fine. So what I started to do was let people know that there was some level of time limit, right? You can't keep this license forever. You can't keep it more than about 45 days, which was the max. So I was trying to turn people over every 45 days and kind of hold them to it. And that was the thing that kind of allowed it to have 5 licenses at one time. And we did have a couple situations where we had someone have to wait a week or so for someone else to finish a certification. But by and large, it worked really well. And I was pretty proud of kind of how I left it. It was pretty smooth running by the time I left. And that was after running it for about 2 years.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Okay. I think I got everything from that. The situation, you said it was at your last company and somebody left. The task, what you're responsible for, it sounds like you just took it upon yourself to figure out how to optimize the licenses that you had. The action, you talked about giving a description, or setting up calls with the whole organization and giving tutorials on how to use the tool and kind of educating. And then the result was that all of the licenses were being used, and even there was even more demand than was needed. So I think you went through the entire STAR process there, and good job.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll cover 2 more to kind of finish things out, and then we'll wrap up. The next one is communication. So tell me about a time when you had to explain something complex to someone, and I'll just add that didn't know much about it. So I think that, to me, is actually kind of one of the tougher things that I face. Is I jump into things, and actually, Corinne, you do a good job on this podcast of calling me out and be like, hey, nobody knows what that means. Explain that real quick. So there are definitely times that I have a little bit of a blind spot, thinking someone will know an acronym or someone will know something kind of nichey that they may not know. So when you talk about this, the complex nature of the explanation. So explain and complex are the 2 words that jump out to me in this. So
Mm-hmm.
coming up with a opportunity or a situation where maybe you were talking to one of the executives about something in your job that was kind of nichey, and how you maybe were asking for something from it, where you needed funding to be able to do this, you needed their blessing to actually really pursue this project. And to be able to do that, you really need to explain to them that hey, I need to be able to do this, and here's what the ROI for the organization would be. So really talking about, speaking in a language of the person that you're talking to. So let's say in this case, it would be an executive, things like ROI, return on investment. Here's the investment of time, and here's the result that we would get out of it. So really thinking through kind of a situation where you had to do something like that, where you had to think about who your audience is, talk in their language about something specific that you're going to do and what the result would be, I think would be the best way to answer this question. Corinne, what do you think?
I think I think that's very much true. A great way to think about it. And I also go the other direction of thinking about a time maybe you mentored somebody or you had to train somebody below you on something that you knew how to do, but they did not yet know how to do. So it's kind of interesting because this question, like, is about explaining something complex to someone, but it also is like you could answer this by simplifying how you answer. Like you could use the question as the answer in a way too. And so you could there's a lot of different examples, but the point is you need to be clear. And I think a lot of people could just pull from this about using the example of training someone else on a task that you've already done but you no longer do as part of your job, and just say specifically what it was and how you went about it, and kind of think about yourself as a as a teacher, as a mentor, and just talk through and tell the story of what happened, and then obviously, like, how are they doing with it, what's the result. Well, yeah, we've had that person then also get promoted and is now teaching somebody else how to do this or XYZ, whatever's true. But there's a couple of different ways explaining something to someone who's not in that same department yet. They're a stakeholder and you need to get resources, or you need to convey the importance and impact of it, or this is somebody underneath me or somebody who's going to start doing something that I have done previously in my career, and I'm basically like teaching them or training them.
I like that. I hadn't thought about going the other direction, so that's a great point, and maybe something where more people would have stories about, because as you get more senior in your career, there are always times when you have mentored someone or talked to someone who maybe is newer in their career, earlier career, where they just simply don't know what kind of things that you're working on. So I think that's a
Yeah.
great opportunity.
And even if you're entry level, right? If you get this question as an entry level individual and you're like, well, I don't have any experience and therefore how am I going to do this? Use an example from college. Use an example from working on a school project with a group of people and you knew something about the subject matter that the other person didn't, and explain how you educated them on it. It's there's a lot of different examples. You could talk about teaching somebody how, the rules of a sport if they were brand new to it and you'd been playing it for 3 years. Like there's a lot of different areas you can go, so it doesn't mean that you have to have a ton of experience professionally to answer this question.
Absolutely. Um, and I think moving on to the next question, is there's a little bit of a interesting kind of part to this, but this one is achievement. And this can go a couple different ways, but I'll kind of talk about a little bit of a different way that I would answer it. So the question is, share an example of a goal you set and how you achieved it. And I think I might use this as an opportunity to talk about something that is kind of a passion of mine, which is running, and talk about a goal that I've got, which is finishing a 100-mile race. So I've lined up for 3 separate 100-mile races, have yet to finish one. I've got one at the end of this month. I'm going to finish it, damn it. So I think I would talk about that goal and the things that I've done to work towards it. So all the training that I've put in, some of the differences that I'm doing this time, working out with a weight vest, uphill treadmill, some just different things that I've added in, to try to get my body to be able to accomplish this goal. it gives me an opportunity to talk about something that isn't necessarily strictly work, but then dovetails very nicely into it by kind of showcasing some of the other parts of my life that I'm goal oriented with. And you could always do a goal within, your work. Let's say you're in sales and you had a big target to hit for a year, and the things and tasks that you did to hit that target, or an achievement of, like, you won an award for something, and kind of the things that you did to kind of get to that award level. Those are all great to use, but something in your personal life could be thrown in here, and it makes you a little bit more of a three-dimensional person. So I kind of want people to know that, I am passionate about running, and it's something that I take very seriously, and, I'm very goal oriented with it. And I think, using that as an example just delivers a little bit of a different idea behind this question.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It could also be pretty entertaining to the person that you're talking to because
Yeah,
they might learn and hear about something that they know nothing about. And therefore, like, that is engaging and keeps them kind of, it also can be something that's a bit memorable for them from your interview. So I totally
absolutely.
agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. So, to wrap up, I think using that STAR methodology will keep you on track, and you shouldn't have the issue of getting halfway through the question and forgetting what the question is. That I think, kind of coming back to that STAR methodology each time you're explaining something, um, can kind of make sure that you know which part of the question that you're answering at that very moment. So I think it's a great thing to use. I think practicing these a little bit, kind of running through scenarios like Corinne had mentioned, coming up with different projects and things that you've accomplished, and the variety of different projects that you've been on, achievements that you've had, can allow you during the interview to kind of pick something to really talk through depending on the behavioral based question. So having those written down, you can bring them with you to the interview. I think that's totally fine, having notes ready to go. And I think, practicing with somebody can be helpful, because then they can give you feedback on, oh, I know you, and I know this project because I've heard you talk about it. Did you remember when you did this, as kind of an added detail that can help really kind of solidify what you're going to talk to people about.
Yeah. Yep. That's perfect. I mean, I think that, at the end of the day, it's, again, they're not, it is maybe less important the specific details of what you did and more important how you tell that story, the fact that you're able to give, details and specifics, your ability to communicate concisely and, come up with something that is relevant in, off the on the fly or off the cuff, even though you're going to prep, so it's not going to be off the cuff. But that is what is being tested in this, maybe more than the content and this and these specifics of, well, we really wanted them to answer that with talking about XYZ project or technology or anything else. It's more about communication skills, storytelling, problem solving, and your communication. And then through that, some of what you've done in the past, showcasing the behaviors that you're going to bring into the new role.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think you can almost equate it to like one of those baking influencers on Instagram. They're going to show you how to do each step. They're going to talk you through it. They're going to talk about the ways that they're, making whatever they're making. It doesn't really matter how it tastes, because no one's going to taste it who's watching it, right? It just matters really how they do it and how they communicate each step in the process.
Yeah, but don't forget to jump to the recipe sometimes and eliminate all of the ads and fluff and things before that, because at the end of the day, like, being concise and not going on for minutes and minutes and minutes is also a big part of this. We live in a very, very yeah, a world
Short
of
attention span.
impatience and short attention spans. And so that is something that you can also practice and just be conscious of. You want to keep your audience and the interviewer engaged in what you're talking about.
I totally agree. Well, thanks very much for joining the Two Talented podcast today. We hope you found that the behavioral interviews and the STAR method help you in your next interview. And if you like what we're doing, please give us a like. Feel free to comment. If you have specific questions about your job search, we'd love to answer them. So yeah, and then if you know anybody who's job searching, who you feel like this would help, please send it to them. We'd love to get more audience and more listeners to future podcasts.
Yeah, subscribe, follow along, let us know what you're curious about, and we will be back next week with another great episode.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.